Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth McSwan from Emac and Hedwig, and it's Friday, so you know what that means. Post-processing video. Here we go. Welcome everybody to another post-processing video. I know that I did an American Avocet last week, but I found this image and I thought that it would be a good candidate for me to show you a couple of things that are a little bit more involved than what I've been showing you thus far. We're going to go into Photoshop and edit this photo using a combination of both Lightroom and Photoshop. So this is the image here. This is of an American Avocet, as I mentioned, and there are a couple of things that I don't like about this photo. And the first one is that I cut off the reflection of the bird. I cut it off right here at the edge here, which I'm not too thrilled about. And the other thing that I don't like is this really dark mass right here. I think it was a rock or something that was in the water. And Lightroom's healing brush and clone brush has gotten a lot better in recent years, but I just need something that's a little bit more refined. So we're first going to start editing this image in Photoshop. But before I do that, I'm going to make one adjustment, and that is the lens correction here. And it just lightens the corners. If you can see, there is some vignetting with this lens, especially with a teleconverter. And so lightening up the corners on this image just really will help with this process. So we're going to go ahead and open this in Photoshop. We're also going to bring in this image here. As you can see in this image, I did get the head in here. But the thing about this image, and you may say, well, you know, why don't you just use this image? But I don't like the head angle in this particular image because the head is just slightly away, as opposed to this one here, where it's looking more in my direction. The eye is brighter. It hits the light a little bit better. So I'm going to combine this image with this image. So we're also going to open this one in Photoshop. So here we go. We have these two images here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little bit more canvas in this image here. So I'm going to go to the crop tool and hang on, let's just do this unconstrained here. I will probably be cropping that down, but basically what I want to do is I want to create a little bit more canvas here on the bottom. So I'm just going to pull it down more than I think I need. This is just easier that way. And then I'm going to just hit return, and now I've got this space down here. So I'm going to go back into this image here. I'm going to grab my selection tool here, and I'm going to unlock this background layer so it lets me do this. And basically what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to select more than I think I need, and I'm not going to do this in a very careful way. And I'm just going to go around and I'm going to grab that whole bottom. There we go. And then I'm going to go to the move tool and I'm going to click on this and I'm just going to lift it up and I'm going to bring my cursor over my other image and I'm just going to drop it right in here like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these two layers as best I can. And let's go in here. It's not quite matching up, but that's okay. It's okay that it's not quite matching up. These legs are in a slightly different spot. Another tool that you can use when you're aligning layers like this is the Opacity Tool. So you can bring down the opacity on your top layer and see how you're doing with aligning everything up. So I'm going to leave it there for reasons that will hopefully become clear in a minute. Let's zoom back out here to here. Okay, now we're going to go back into the crop tool and we're just going to crop this down like that. And I'm probably going to crop this down a little further, but for now I'm not going to worry about it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the eraser brush and I'm going to make this brush bigger. So in this image, we can see a little bit of difference, right, in these two layers. You can see where I dropped this layer in. So basically what I want to do is I want that edge to disappear. So with this very soft, as you can see, my hardness on this brush is all the way down to 0. And it allows me to kind of go in with this and basically just make this disappear. But I'm not going to worry about this edge because I'm going to probably crop it anyway. But let's just see how I did with, yeah. So let's, what did I just do here? Let's zoom out a little bit here. All right, and let's just do that. There we go. There we go, that's better. Okay, so let's get back out to 25. All right, so that looks pretty good. You can tell the head is in a slightly different position here, but I think it looks pretty natural. So I'm gonna crop this in a little bit here, and a little bit. And, nope, there we go. And I'm probably going to crop it in a little further, but I have a few more things that I want to do before I crop it further. So the next thing that we're going to do is I want to get rid of this blur of brown, this brown blob. It just looks terrible. So I'm going to go, there are a few different ways that you can do this. This is the way that I usually start. I usually start with the patch tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around here, select it like this, like that, and I'm just going to basically start something like that here. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to deselect. And it's pretty good. You can see the edge here, but I just might help myself later and just crop that out. But let's just see. Let's just see if we can kind of. This is where I see it the most. So let's just. Sometimes you have to do this a few times before it kind of looks a little bit more natural. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm just gonna clean a few of these spots up a little bit. I know that when I was out here, my sensor was really dusty. So some of these might be dust spots. Some of them might just be like little things in the water. It's hard to tell sometimes. But this edge here is just bothering me a little bit. So let's go in. There's a little bit of an edge, as you can see in here, and I think it's because, part of the reason I think is because I'm between edges. Let's see here. What happens when I do that? No, it didn't really make a difference. All right, let's go back in here. Let's go to the eraser tool. Sometimes, again, like I've said in other videos, sometimes it just takes a little bit of finagling here. All right, so that's a little bit better. So basically what I was doing here was I basically just erased more of the edge of this layer here, layer 1, so that it kind of just meshed a little bit better with the background layer. And that, I think, pretty much did it. So let's go back in here. Let's make sure I think the background layer. And so now I'm gonna do the spot healing brush, and there's just a few places where I feel like and just kind of clean up a little bit. So I just like to go in and do a little bit of cleanup just so that it looks a little bit less distracting and less like it could be essentially sensor dust. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I think we did it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this image. And now when I go back into Lightroom, it's going to pop up here in a second. There it goes. Here we go. And now I can make all of the other adjustments that I would normally make in Lightroom. And so I'm going to start with cropping and straightening, as usual here, although this looks pretty good. And you know what? I can't really crop that much. This looks pretty straight to me, but what I am going to do is I'm going to do my usual ratio here. And I'm just going to bring this down a little bit, and I'm going to move this over a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that I've got all of that head in there. There we go. Next, I'm going to just create a little bit of more contrast here. Let's see, and I'm just going to more vibrance. What does more vibrance do? Ooh, I kind of like more vibrance there. And I'm also going to go in down here. Sometimes I'll play with the saturation of the colors here. And so I just want to see what happens when I pump up the blues. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Something like, yeah, I do. The blues I would like to add. So yeah, so the blues I'm going to make a little bit darker, a little bit bluer, and then I'm going to pump up the saturation on them a little bit, just the blues. Looks pretty good. I'm also going to push the yellow tones a little bit darker here. As you can see, that changed the color in the background a little bit. And I also want to decrease the saturation in the greens back here. What does that do? Like that. And then I'm going to raise the exposure just a little. Oop, too much. Just a little bit. Something like this, maybe. All right. Now I'm going to make my kind of vignette selection here. Just a little bit. Let's turn on these so you can see what I'm doing here. Just a little bit in here. Although I don't want to get the bird, so let's make sure I'm not getting the bird here. There we go. And now we're just going to darken it just a smidgen, just a little bit. Something like that. Yeah, something like that. And then we'll do our kind of our other selection where we just lighten it a little bit. Yeah, like that. So now what I want to do is I just want a little bit more contrast and punch in the reflection here. So as you can see, all of the bottom here is selected. And I'm just going to darken it a little bit. Darken it a little bit, and I'm going to add a little bit more contrast. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Let's do the before and after here. Yeah, so as you can see, we did our normal adjustments to things like contrast, exposure, saturation, that sort of thing. They were a little bit more specific. We targeted specific colors and whatnot. And then, of course, we also cleaned up the water especially right here, and then added some canvas on the bottom. So overall, I think it looks really great. Boom. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It would help me out a lot. If you want to see more of my work, you can follow me on Instagram. Also, you can find me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. For as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to videos like this, along with a bunch of other really cool stuff. So please feel free to check that out. And as always, everybody, take care. Happy adventuring, happy shooting. Have a good weekend. See you later.